that they're beginning to trust each other. And Roz needs their help to escape. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. So let's see. So at the end of this, at the end of the chapter, Roz or Jay and Jad said that they let's see, the children smiled and hugged the robot. They really seemed to care about her. Roz wondered if they cared enough to help her escape from the farm. One of these days, she would have to risk everything and tell them the truth. She led Jay and Jad out to the old oak tree and told them another story about the robot on the island. And so here's the story Roz told. Chapter 31, The Campfire. Wood smoke billowed up from the backyard and drifted across the farm. Roz was building a campfire for the Sharifs. In her old life, the robot made fire by cracking special stones together until she got a spark. But in her new life, she used a lighter. The family sat around the rippling flames and gazed up at the stars. The dog stretched out on the warm ground. The robot was standing nearby, but her thoughts were far away. Her computer brain was scrolling back through memories of campfires and of stargazing with Brightville. Fluffy white marshmallows were skewered onto the ends of sticks and then roasted above the flames. Who's ever done that?
I have. This is Zara and I have.
Very fun. Okay. The children laughed as their marshmallows caught on fire. They liked them charred on the outside and gooey on the inside. Their father preferred them evenly browned. When the Sharifs weren't stuffing their mouths, they were chattering happily. That's the space station, said Julia, pointing to a tiny dot in the sky.
Yeah, she's reading.
Hold on a minute. You guys make sure that you're muted. Okay. That's the space station, said Jaya, pointing to a tiny dot that was slowly moving through the sky. I can't believe people live there. Animals live there too, said Jad. The station has a farm. We should bring our cows up and show those space farmers how it's done. So there's a space station in space that's like a little city. That's cool. I think our cows are perfectly content right here on Earth, said Mr. Sharif, and so am I. Once the marshmallows were gone, Jay and Dad snuggled up with Oscar, stared into the flames, and asked their father about the old days. Okay, sorry. And asked their father about the old days. But the children were just too cozy to stay awake for long, so Mr. Sharif spoke to Roz instead because the kids had fallen asleep. We made campfires all the time when I was a boy. The man poked the coals with the marshmallow stick, and glowing embers floated into the air. We had a nice life here. The whole family would sit around like this, telling stories. We had a nice life here. But then my brother and sister moved to the city, and my parents got old, and everyone expected me to take over the farm. I could not run the place by myself, he went on. So I hired Jamila. I did the farm work, and she managed the business. We made a good team, and then we fell in love. When Jamila was pregnant with Jad, we bought a few auto machines to help out. Then Jaya showed up and we bought a few more. If I'd known one of those machines would be the death of her. And the father's voice trailed off and he was sad. Roz wanted to know more about Jamila and about Mr. Sharif and about the rest of his family. But a normal robot would not ask personal questions, so she kept her questions to herself and dropped another log on the fire. So it sounds like that's pretty sad. His wife died, Jay and Jad's mother. I know it sounds like in an accident on the farm. Okay.
What's the accident?
Huh?
What does that, how did the accident happen?
I don't know. I think we'll find out more about it in a little while. I think that will be revealed. Who just asked that? You were so nice.
Zara.
Zara, that was very nice. Okay. This is chapter 32, The Old Barn. Long ago, Hilltop Farm was a very different place. The original farmers grew vegetables, vegetable gardens, and fruit orchards. And they raised chickens, sheep, and goats. So now it's a dairy farm with cows, but before it was an orchard. And so it had fruit and vegetables. A rusty tractor sat in the wheat. Oh, low stone walls lined the fields. Oh, the farm had changed a lot since then, but there were still signs of its past. Low stone walls lined the fields. A rusty tractor sat in the weeds, and hidden within a densely wooden grove was an old barn. Now, this barn we should listen because I think later on it's going to be important to the story. So let's find out about it. The barn hadn't been used in generations. Over the years, trees had quietly grown up around it and moss had started across its roof. If you're singing, can you please stop? Because we can all hear you. And just listen with your ears. But the barn was strong and solid, and Roz wanted to take a look inside. The big barn door screeched along its rails. Hello, said the robot, peering into the darkness. Is anyone here? Here's a picture of the old barn.
That's a weird thing.
A mouse squeaked and scurried out of sight, and then Roz had the barn to herself. She stepped through the doorway and switched on her headlights. The vast interior was crisscrossed with thick wooden beams. Stairways and ramps led up to lofts and platforms. Lanterns hung from hooks on the walls. Old-fashioned farm equipment lay here and there. The barn still had the faint smell of farm animals, even though they had not lived there in ages. A large trunk sat on a work table covered in dust. Roz carefully opened the lid and examined what was inside. A collection of farming magazines, a pair of leather gloves, and a pencil, a tiny pencil. And then she noticed a small journal. The name was Cyrus Sharif, elegantly scrawled across the cover. The pages were filled with handwritten notes and hand-drawn diagrams about raising livestock and growing crops and building barns, about working the land with the help of strong animals and simple machines. Cyrus Sharif had also jotted down his thoughts about the long history of farming. He believed that modern.
You're echoing.
I know. Let me mute everybody. He believed that the modern world. Let me. Where was I? He believed that the modern world owed its entire existence to old ancient farms, when early humans first started growing their food. Those farms were small and primitive, but they supported villages, which became towns, which became cities. The writings were so wise and so insightful that Roz read the journal from the beginning to the end, from cover to cover. By the end, she almost felt as if she knew Cyrus Sharif, whoever he was. The journal was a treasure, and she tucked it into the pocket of her tool belt for safekeeping. The next chapter we'll do tomorrow, well, maybe we'll do it now. It's called Autumn. Now, what's important about autumn? Who knows? Riley.
That's when all the birds migrate home.
And so who might be migrating Roz's way?
Right, Bill. Right, Bill. Right, Bill.
You guys want to see if that's true? Do you want to hear about it?
Yeah.
This is the autumn. Autumn colors were sweeping across farm country. The lush greens of summer faded to reds and browns. Crops were harvested, leaves fell away, and the landscape turned stark and gray. On Hilltop Farm, the cows were grazing on what remained of the pasture grass, while the herding machine hovered by. The field machine was preparing the fields for winter. The drones circled the farm several times a day, but there was less to report in autumn. That's the fall, signs of fall. Although Jay and Jeb were busy with school, they always had time for Roz. The children never grew tired of listening to the robot stories, and they never tired of sharing their own. The bees and the mice and the deer and the frogs and the raccoons and the squirrels and the snakes were all getting ready for the cold winter. So too were the birds. The owls spruced up their nests, and the crows stockpiled acorns. The swallows were still swooping over the farmland, but they would soon be leaving for winter. Any day now, other migratory birds would begin passing through on their long journeys to the south. The next chapter is called The Delighted Geese. So good. What do you guys think?